Good afternoon. Welcome to Encore Palm Beach County Words of Wisdom special presentation. This is a number 8, I believe, in our series of Words or Wisdom, working up to our Wisdom and Experience event. We'll be sharing more towards the end of the program. For now, I'd like to bring on our special guest. She has a very unique story that she will share with us. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Iris Goldschmidt. Thank you, Iris. It's all yours.
Thank you, Christine. I'd like to say good morning to everyone, and thank you, actually, it's afternoon. And I'd like to thank you for having me to share my words of wisdom. The funny thing is for those of us who have children, it's funny how we become wiser as we get older. They start to recognize that. So I thank you for putting me in that bracket, because trying to convince your children as they get older that you're wiser than they are is kind of difficult. So at least I have my peers who can listen to me and be able to share my story and how I got to where I am today. And we talk about embracing the change in life through the entrepreneurship. My life has been a series of changes. When I got married at 18 years old, after knowing my husband for 4 weeks, I didn't know what it was to even have a change, because I lived in one house and went to the next, not knowing really what I was getting into, but my husband wouldn't take no for an answer. And so there it was, and I was married. And I thought, coming from his family, which was the European family, thought that basically, and I hate to use these words, but this is the way it was: pregnant, barefooted, under the table. This is what a woman was at that time. You take care of your children, you raise them, and this is what you're going to be. Well, unfortunately, after a couple of years, and I had a child, my first child, I went through a series of tragedies and lost my child. And the night before, my father had a heart attack. And I was 21 years old, and I thought, the next day, I realized that this is not what I want to be and not who I want to be. And I decided that I was going to build myself as an individual and not as somebody's wife and somebody's mother. And I started to look at opportunities and see them with different eyes that I had seen before. So I will go on to my next slide and give you a background of how I started. What is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a dreamer who can bring dreams to reality. A dreamer is just a dreamer. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And that's the way I always approached everything, not realizing how the end would turn out. That's how I got married, not even realizing what I was doing. As a true entrepreneur, I dream of ideas every single day. I never stop. There have been failures along the way, and there have been successes. But if you never try, you'll never have that benefit and the excitement that comes with the creation of a new idea. You can't expect to achieve anything if you never take the risks. It's funny, even with the risks, I have always turned lemon into a lemonade. I know that it may not turn out quite right, but you know what? You can always look on the bright side. Who is Iris Goldsmith? Well, I'm going to start back from hide and seek. When I started this original path, I started a children's discount clothing outlet, not knowing a thing about children's clothing, or even an outlet for that matter. But I did it and became very successful. I had loads of money in my hand, but I didn't know, did I have to pay my vendors? Oh my goodness, I have $4,000 in my pocket. I didn't realize a vendor would call me on the phone and said, oh, you know, you do have to pay for these goods. Oh, really? Okay. So that was my first lesson of how to be an entrepreneur. But then, as everything happens in business, unfortunately, the world is not always perfect. And we went through a series of downturns during the 80s. And I came back with suitcase in hand, closing my stores, finding that $4,000 underneath the counter and go, oh, hey, payday. There was the $4,000 that I didn't know what to do with. It was sitting there underneath the counter. So I did that, and then I started to work because I felt sorry for my children, that I had become a gypsy. We were moving from place to place, going into business. I needed some sort of stability for them. So I went to work for a company, and as I do things, I became very successful, became a manager of their word processing system group, ended up selling to attorneys, ended up writing macros for all the major law firms in Philadelphia. And it became just an unbelievable success. But then I went to my, and I never called boss because I never had anybody boss me. I worked for someone that I went into his office and I said, I'm 34 years old. I'm giving you the best years of my life. You need to be able to pay me for what I have done. And he refused to do it. So with that, these were my accounts. I took an account, and my first sale, I had made $90,000 profit. And I started my own company, doing system integration with my husband. I was a company of 3 and making a lot of money, very successful doing that. Now we come back one day as things started to change, lawyers were coming back into the offices, knowing how to use computers. They didn't really need me anymore. So I sort of took a respite and said, well, what do I do from here? I happened to be going through the airport and seeing an opportunity. Again, looking at the opportunity and being able to seize on it and go forward with it. I saw an opportunity to bring electronics to airports. No one had done that before. The airport said to me, nobody wants to buy electronics at airports. I said, I beg to differ with you and let me prove that to you. And I did. And I told Comcast, which everybody knows, that I wanted to open up a store. And their VP said, okay. And then they came back to me right before I was ready to start building. And they said, we've changed our minds. So what does Iris do? Iris doesn't take no for an answer. I called Ralph Roberts on the phone, the CEO of Comcast. And I said to his secretary, I want to speak to Mr. Roberts. And he said to me, oh, tell me what's the problem. I said, your company is an embarrassment to the city of Philadelphia, and I want to know what your company has done to me. Within a few days, I got a call from Mr. Roberts. I was called down to their headquarters with a boardroom of 12 men who took an X through a contract and said, what is it that you want? And I told them, and I opened my first store in Philadelphia. I found out later that Mr. Roberts had said, you do whatever it takes to make this woman happy. It's because I did not take no for an answer and went one step higher. And then until I exhausted everything I could do. You don't tell Iris no, not easily. So then I come to where we are today. My stores are in airports, closed with the pandemic. I had sold part of my company and had the rest of my company being ownership and being able to live off of that for the rest of my life. And what happens? My stores are closed and I go, okay, do I jump off a bridge? No. What does Iris do? Iris figures it out, because I always said, roll with the punches, kid. That's what my mother taught me. Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and keep going. And that's what I did. And with my son-in-law and my daughter, we were the ones who brought got the contract for the masks for Palm Beach County that went out to all of its residents. After getting 2 contracts of that, which helped us, we're now involved in doing the testing, which is probably the best in technology, that you can test for COVID within 25 minutes at 99.8% accuracy. We've just signed the MLB, PGA Tours, the EPA. And so we're continuing on that vein, waiting for our other business to open back up. I just want to go back to that slide again. And if you look to the left, so you have to know me. It has never been about money. Money is only a means to be able to do the things that I need to do. I am truly an entrepreneur who enjoys the excitement of building and being creative. I won an award back in 1916 for an inspiration award for women in technology in Las Vegas. Very coveted award for me because it was the ultimate saying, you know what, Iris, you did it amongst my peers. And it was a wonderful accomplishment for me. Then also, if you notice, I have it in gold. And why do I have this in gold? Because there's something that always reminds me of a time I was sitting in front of a desk at a secretary. And along her desk were gold stars all along the top. And I said, can I ask you what the gold stars are? She said, well, every time I do something right, I get a gold star. And this is all the gold stars. I said, you get any money with this? She said, no. I said, well, honey, I need to talk to you about something. I think you need to go back in. And yet, because she had just finished telling me how she couldn't pay her bills. And yet she stays overnight late, getting gold stars. I said, you need to do a little more. Just trying to mentor her a little bit on how she can help herself. So I always think of that gold star, and I always tell everybody, I'm not the gold star girl. Although that award was the gold star for me. I also became the director of the AMAC Foundation, which allows and helps and gives scholarships to students who want to go into the aviation industry. And in that, through the last few years, I have run across these people in the industry who I've talked to, and they come up to me and thank me all the time for everything that I have done. Now, my words of wisdom, this is funny, because during when the pandemic started, I was looking at my clock up at the ceiling, and that was the day I realized that waking up to the clock set wrong said something about myself. I looked at the clock, it was 4:30 in the morning, but actually it was 5:30 in the morning. I never changed the clock because after all, the clock is right half the time of the year, and I can accept that. And that's who I am. I just accept things and I adjust. When always facing changes, I adjust and I make everything work for me. I'm sure it goes a lot of other people crazy when they have to do that, but not me. Looking at a glass half full or half empty, I've always lived for the moment, trying to make each day count, enjoying each moment with the attitude that we are given only a limited time for moments to appreciate and enjoy. I always try looking at a glass half full instead of half empty. It allows me to overcome adversity and obstacles you are constantly faced with in business, and not only in business, but in life as well. My husband passed away 3.5 years ago, very, very ill. Until the day he died, he gave me such joy. I faced every day with the day as it was going to be our last, but enjoy it for each moment. And that's the way I looked at life, and that's the way I looked at business. My famous woman, Scarlett O'Hara. In the movie, Gone with the Wind, anybody who was on this is young. I can't believe my children have never seen it. She presents herself as a very strong woman who's happy while fighting through the obstacles of the Civil War. And I even play my favorite line. And that is, tomorrow's another day. The next one you're going to see is only slightly me. So I won't lie, cheat, or steal, and I never have. And actually, what I have been told by airport directors, one of the reasons during bad times, good times, even if it was bad, they said, Iris, we trust you. We know anything that you say is gospel. They know me as being forthright and honest. And that's the way I have always approached business. I have integrity. Not everybody is that way. But if I can pass that on to everyone, that's the way you do business. But I have been hungry, and it's that hunger and that drive that keeps me going. Well, now let's embracing and looking forward, where I am today. Still thinking of ideas, but I'm a little bit, I curb my enthusiasm a little bit more now because I am older and I want to take these last few years because I do understand that we have a limited time on this earth and I want to enjoy every moment I can. I just came back from an extensive trip to the Van Gogh Museum, and you see, I do things like find a shirt that has the Van Gogh on it, and I was looking for that painting and had a picture of me taking. I went to the Anne Frank house, went to Holland, dancing my shoes. I climbed up a 14,000-foot mountain on a glacier. This is all in the last month. I have gone up the Matterhorn, taken a cruise down the Rhine, shot guns in the desert, took zip lining. There is not a moment to waste. I'm already thinking I'm going to a safari. I'm going to do everything I can. And while I'm going, I'm thinking, what can I do next? What can I do to leave a legacy for future of other generations or other women who have gone through the things that I have gone through? I actually talked to Christine about that because she aligns her thoughts the same way I do. I'd like to help people the way I was helped. I went through a very tough time. And one thing I have not mentioned, I lost 135 pounds. I also decided that I wanted to live a healthy life. It's the same passion that I have for everything that I will continue on and live out the rest of my life. I ran into a girl who was sitting at the bottom of the glacier, and she had this on her arm. And if not now, when? How poignant that was for me, because I will continue to do this now and not ever look for when. My words of wisdom to live by: remember, I told you, never take no for an answer. Go one step higher. I felt bad because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Never be jealous of anyone else because it could always be worse. Roll with the punches, kid. On my mother's tombstone, every time I go and see her, she told me, roll with the punches because life is tough. And we know Scarlett O'Hara, thank you for those words of wisdom. Vini vidi vici. I came, I saw, and I conquered. I came to the airports, I saw an opportunity, and I conquered the business and seized the moment, and I did. I will leave you with this. This was the last thing that I did, climbing off a 2,000-foot mountain, being pushed. And I want you to hear and look at my face as I was doing it. I was very fearful before. And my husband taught me something after I lost my child because I was so fearful. He said, if you live in fear, you'll never live. And how right he was. I do not live in fear. I will go running out with a bonsai as I'm leaving. Here we go. If you hear, I'm hyperventilating. Anyway, I'm going to let everyone who wants to see that see the end of it. But at the very end, I never had thought I was going to do that. I didn't even realize I was going on this trip until 2 weeks before. And I didn't even realize what I was doing when I was jumping off that mountain, almost 3,000 feet. But at this point in my life, I've taken so many chances and gone through so many changes that I am now starting to live feeling free, freer than I've ever felt in my life, and enjoying every single moment. So I thank you for the time. I hope that I have been an inspiration. I hope that you can take these words and live the kind of life that I'm living. I have so many people who have called me and said, I live vicariously through you. Don't live vicariously through me. Do it. Do the things you want to do. Jump off that hill. Take a chance. Start a business. Help people. Do whatever it is that you feel impelled to do. And I thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
I hear someone ready. Is that you, Karen?
Yes, this is Karen, and Iris, thank you for that. I was still just admiring that view and thinking what you must be thinking at that high altitude there, and conquering your fear, of course, but also trying to remember to enjoy the beauty of the moment. And I just wanted to thank you for that, because even though we might be fearful or just a bit apprehensive, I think you've shared the importance of just enjoying and doing things that perhaps we didn't think we could, but we can. So thank you for sharing. That was very inspirational.
You're welcome.
Rosemary?
Oh, you see, I'm gearing up, right? Well, I have to thank you, Iris, for sharing, but I also feel a great connection with you personally. When you spoke about what the expectations were for you as a young woman and wife, very limited role. When I was 18, I won a full scholarship to college. But, I lived in a time back in 1957 when a lot of women, particularly in my community, didn't go to college. In fact, I would have been the first in my family to do that. The expectation was that women would get married, stay home, and have children. And my stepfather said, no, you're not going to go to college. You're going to go get a job, live at home, and pay board till you get married. And maybe you'll never marry. You'll stay here and take care of us in our old age. And I said, well, what I said, I can't repeat. But I said, that's not what I want for myself. And so I went off to college. And as you know, Iris, one decision takes you along a path in life and things unroll from there. So I congratulate you for saying you wanted more out of life than what was expected for you. And obviously, lots of people have that experience, but not everybody rejects the attitudes and expectations of others and lives their life framed by others rather than themselves. And while you were talking, I was thinking of that the quotation, I forget where it comes from, but it says, if I am not for me, who will be for me? If not now, when? I also loved Scarlett O'Hara in that movie. Particularly when she said, I'll never be hungry again. So I had a lot of not so much questions, but just connecting with things that you said that made me think about my life and choices. I happen to be the glass is half full person myself. And those who know me know one of my favorite sayings is I swim in a sea of possibility. Opportunity is everywhere, all around us, all the time. We just need to have eyes to see, ears to hear, and courage. So thank you for sharing that. But I do want to know, what's next, Iris?
Well, I don't know, because my mind is constantly going, and everyone asks me that, and I have so many opportunities to do other things. But I need, I don't know if anybody has had, unfortunately, I've had the experience of having to be a caregiver for a time. So right now, I'm just really trying to concentrate on me and what my needs are, because I have been not only just from my husband and my children, but friends and colleagues. I have been so giving to so many people. I had 300 people working for me up until the very end, even when I became a partner of the situation I'm in now, and I'm still working actively. I'm a woman disadvantaged business enterprise, so I still have 57 stores and airports. So, and I'm on the board, and I still have responsibilities as a partner to do that. But at any given time, if I have the time, I'm going to travel, because while I still can climb up mountains, I'm going to do that. Physically, there is a limitation at a certain point. And so while I can still do that, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do anything crazy, or at least my children won't know that. But I have to say, and I'm very proud to say, I met a man who is does not want to move in, which is a good thing. And he wants to live his life, and he appreciates my life. And I guess he said, well, what's a companion? I said, I guess that's the ultimate question for women our age. Can it be a companion, or you don't want to get married? You certainly don't need to do that. And especially if you are successful, you don't need someone else's money. So, you're really put in I think the men respect that. They respect a strong woman. So it was thought it was going to be rather hard to find someone, but there are a few out there, I have to say. And so as he wants to travel, if he wants to travel with me, I'll do that. And if he can't, I'll say, okay, bye. See ya. And he knows that, because I think it's important to be independent. And that's the one thing that you said, Rosemary. I was very fortunate to have a husband who allowed me, and if you understand, to be me. He allowed me to grow. When I remarried him the day before he passed, and I said to him, it took me 10 minutes to write my vows, because he was my mentor. He was my teacher. I helped him write his thesis when he got almost his doctorate. So I went through college with him. I said to him, Jack, I want to go back to school. He said, what for? You could teach the course. I said, but for me, I had wanted to do that, but I never got the opportunity because I am busy. I'm busy running the business. I can't, as a certified DB, I have a clear and concise role in the business, and that's important. So would I like to start other things? Yes. I almost have to hit myself and say, stop it, Iris, stop it. You have to back down. Because when you know what it's like when you're in business, you have to give it focus. And if you're not focused, it gets away from you, and then you really don't do anything right. So I think right now, stay tuned in about a year, and then I'll let you know.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to that.
Iris, I'd like to ask you, because you talked about your defining moment, but as I'm listening to you and Rosemary as well, what kind of mindset, or how did you put yourself in the mindset to move past those challenges? In other words, what was it that actually gave you the strength and the courage to move on?
Honestly, I think, and I think about this all the time, it's called desperation. Desperation really brings you to a point where you will think about it. And I think I work best being desperate. I always have. If I'm up against the wall, I think my children even know that. They know that when the tough is going, I get going. It's just a part of me. I go into survival mode, and I work my best that way. I've been most successful that way. When I knew I had to come up with a concept to be able to make a living, I came up with something. And if this didn't work, I'll try the next thing. But I think I'm even that way now. I don't think I'll ever change. That's funny. The only thing where it doesn't work is being desperate to find a man. I think that's the only thing. Other than that, no, it has to be desperate when you're in business, because I think you're most successful that way.
I agree with that. Marilyn, you had your hand raised.
Marilyn?
She had her hand raised. Okay. Anyone else? I know, Iris, you wanted to introduce Anna.
I just want to say a couple things. So I've known Iris for a couple years now, and regarding entrepreneurship, I think the most important thing she said is don't say no for an answer. And that's kind of where we have some commonality. And I think she's amazing at looking to solve a problem. In that area, I'm more of a dreamer than an entrepreneur, but she's amazing in that area. I think what she highlighted, but didn't talk a lot about is some of the hardships that she went through. And I think the hardships make you stronger, as she noted, and bring you joy. She is a woman of joy. So I appreciate that very much about you, Iris, being a woman of joy.
Thank you. Nobody likes a Debbie Downer, as I say.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have a mother who thought she was the original Blanche Dubois, if anybody knows who that is. It was from Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh. So Anne, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Iris.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Anna, you had a story to share, according to Iris.
I'm not sure how much of the story I would share, but I'm recently relocated to Wellington. Been coming here for about 5 years. I met Iris at the Starbucks. We just started talking. But I've been coming here because I started investing in Florida in real estate in Wellington. And my background was entrepreneurial. I owned a small business with my husband. We actually did the sport of fencing. And then I parlayed that into a commercial real estate building management. And then I just said, let me come down here. And I like it down here. And so now I've moved here. So I don't know how much more of a story I can share. There are a lot of other parts, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. So I'm very happy to be here.
Well, glad to have you. Marilyn, did you have a question? You had a hand up at some point?
Oh, I was just clapping. It was a very good presentation. Thank you.
It's kind of hard to talk about, 50 some years in business and constant changes. The whole presentation was about change. It was so strange, and I was thinking about it this morning, because that change, I even had that discussion with my husband when I was 18 years old, and I started to cry. And I said, I don't like this. And I actually ran out of the house, and a police officer stopped me. And I said, I don't like being married. This is not fun. And he said, he said, wipe your eyes and go back. You're married. And I went back to my dad and I said, Dad, I don't like this. And he goes, sorry, I got you out of here. I don't want you back. So my husband was a wonderful man. And I was just very fortunate that it worked out. But he said to me something, and I said, why in the world would you marry me? His parents knew my parents. I didn't even know you. He said, Iris, I can see that you have a pure soul. And I took that with me all the time, but I cried to him and I said, I am lost. I went from one house to another. I don't like change. I loved being with my parents and then taking care of everything. Now I have to watch you go off to school and I'm here. And it was just not happy for me. I was not used to that. But then I started changes. Like you start accepting change. And then there's so many changes in your life. And especially in business. I had a speech that I had to do years ago for a group of entrepreneurs. And I said, never be complacent because in business, because complacency is, you're lost. You'll have a business that, and especially in technology. I'm in the technology business. It changes every 6 months. I don't know how I would live without change. Now all I want is change. You just, again, you have to hold it back because in looking at that change, you can seem impulsive. And you have to curb that a little bit because you have to really look at what that change is and see if it's the right way to go. I can't afford to make mistakes this time in my life in making those change and being impulsive.
Iris, who is the person who is most responsible for you taking the path of entrepreneurship?
That's really funny. You should ask that question. I think it's in the genes. My mother's mother was an entrepreneur in Russia. She had a factory. She killed 7 husbands. She was the original Liz Taylor because she'd make them go out to work in a snowstorm. And then when she came to the United States, she had 13 children. She only had 3 left because they had all during the pogroms. But she came with diamonds sewn into her dress. I understand she was a very tough woman, and everybody who is in the family, because there's so many children that are from other children that from other, because there were stepchildren. I don't even know to this day all the family members. But when I do see some of them, they say, you are our grandmother's, you've got her genes, because that's who she was. She was the entrepreneur, and she was a tough lady. But there's a story that goes back that during the Second World War, she had buildings in Philadelphia, and there was a woman the FBI came into. They say that they had to come and get her, but she was dead when they came to get her. So they threw out the mattress, and my grandmother's running down the street, bring me my mattress back. I mean, she's telling that was important to her. But that's, I guess, who I most likely favor. My father had an incredible charisma. He could talk to the president of the United States. He was unbelievable when it came to the gift gab. But I guess we all grow up with that. Some of us take it, some of us don't. But I think that I have taken that from my family. And I thank them for that.
Okay, great.
I have a question, Iris.
Yes.
As a businesswoman and dealing with change, are you experiencing any issues with your stores in getting semiconductors? We've heard about supply chain things and, different issues of business. And I'm just wondering if you're dealing with any such things other than you're also pivoting, of course, I understand, to the COVID testing, but what are you finding for your traditional businesses in the airport?
So something, because, you know, everybody is talking, and the things that I have found out, the knowledge that I have found out. So there are things called smart chips and dumb chips. Dumb chips are the chips that are used in cars. And so they only cost about 50 cents a piece to make. And so these companies are going, why should we make these dumb chips? We're going to stop selling the dumb chips. That's why you see the cars, they're not able to produce the cars. So we'll have a little more latitude because it costs a lot more money for the smart chips. So companies will provide those. So you see that there are still phones out there, Samsung and all these other phones, because they're making a lot of money. I mean, if you look at the price of the new phone, the Fold is $2,000. I mean, so they're getting their money on this, and they're going to make sure those are made. The chips that we use in the testing are also smart chips, but there still is a lag in that. So it really depends on the type of products, technology products that are being sold. So on some of these smaller products, the electronics, yes, there's going to be a problem getting those things. And we're going to have to be careful, because what's coming out of China, even though they say OEM, which is original product, they're not. Because I had an issue with that years ago and ended up in a suit because we ended up having a charger that ended up going in airplanes and they started on fire. But they were supposed to be a OEM product, and it turned out when it went down the filter that it wasn't. So we have to be careful, like in anything. But I'm actually not parlaying into that business. It's a separate business that my son-in-law is running with his partner. But I will say that thank goodness to it, because it has allowed me to continue, because I won't even tell you, the larger you are, the harder you fall. I have stores that have to be covered, and we're talking about into the millions of dollars of a loss. And I haven't taken a distribution check in a year and a half. So it was when I talk about a loss, when I merged my company, that first half of that paid off all my debt. The second half of it would have been my take. And now that is pretty much gone away until things go back up and running again. So when I talk about jumping off a bridge, I used to joke and say, well, I'll jump off a curb, because that's who I am. I will look at the bright side no matter what and say, you know, after all, tomorrow is another day. So I truly am that way, and I am still enjoying life in such a good way. And as Anna has said, I met her almost a few days after my husband passed away at Starbucks. I was sitting at a table outside, and she came over to me. She said, "You look like you need a friend." Mm-hmm. And it was the most wonderful thing, because I did. I had gone from caregivers in the house, ventilators going, oxygen going, to total silence. It was deafening. And I didn't know who I was. I had lost myself because I suddenly was left alone. And even though I was in business, that was not my life. That was only part of my life. So I thank goodness to 3 years and healing, and now onward and upward. And so honestly, your question, Rosemary, I'm not sure, because now knowing me and all the things that I've done, I'm not one to sit on a chair with my feet up waiting for things for my days to go by.
Do you have a feeling in terms of your business when things might go back to, well, I hate to use the word normal, because I don't think anybody knows what that is anymore, but a better business environment, let's put it that way?
So the tough thing for me is when this all happened a month before, the company that was my partner, because being a WDBE, the government wants me as a partner. So the other partners may sell, but I'm still in. They sold a month before to an international company. I had not even yet met my partners. So I met them in Dallas a few weeks ago, but they're now, because it's now a whole new company, Their financial people are different. Their managers are all different. So getting the information from them is not that easy. So they're trying to regroup. So it's, even though the business may be up and running, everything that I need to continue going is just not forthcoming as quickly as I need it. So that's the tough part about it. It just was timing. And I'm sure that the international company that bought it are not real happy because they bought an incredibly good business to a business that was shut down for over a year, which has happened to a lot of people. I know people who started restaurants and put all of their savings into it and never opened. So. Right.
Well, airports are not going away, and hopefully you will continue to be in them.
Yes, no, I have traveled myself. I told you I went everywhere. Was it difficult? No, because I did my own testing, which was very easy. And they accepted it well. It's the same old as what it was. I guess the biggest thing that bothers me is the temperature of people, and everybody's angry. And so when you get on a plane, people are angry. When they're late and delayed, they're angry. I've seen fights, fisticuffs. I mean, understand we're dealing with difficult times, but you just try to do the best you can and deal with it and hope that you're not caught in the crossfire.
Exactly.
But go. I'd say to anyone who is planning a trip to go, if you've had your vaccination and your testing, and just stay away from people. I just made sure the places I went, there weren't many people up in the mountain, climbing up. So that was okay. And I was in Zermatt and Chamonix. There's not very many people there. And trains were not busy. And so that part of Europe was pretty good. And so I didn't feel like I was being exposed too badly. Be vigilant. That's all I say. But we have to get back to life. This is the world, and the people. I mean, it becomes an argument and an issue when we talk about vaccinations and is it right and it's wrong and these conspiracy theories and what are you going to do? I try not to get into it. It's just like politics. Who's right? Who's wrong? Just do the best you can.
You have a beautiful perspective, Iris, and we're so pleased that you shared it with us today. You are a ray of sunshine, so I think we're all going to leave this a little happier today. Don't you agree?
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you. And Karen, would you like to share with us about the Wisdom and Experience event?
Yes, I would. Thank you. And again, Iris, thank you from all of us at Encore and all of those Encore Palm Beach County and those on the call. And of course, as Rosemary shared, this will be on our YouTube channel. So anyone who didn't have the opportunity to be here live today will get to hear your words of wisdom. And we appreciate you being part of the series. And as Christine started our hour with, we are having these words of wisdom events. We'll have one more in October, and we're building toward an event that is going to be on October the 29th. It's a Friday morning, and it's a breakfast event where Encore Palm Beach County is proud to have our inaugural award for the fact that wisdom and experience works for business. And we can all understand what the importance of experience. Iris certainly has quite a bit of experience and how she has relied upon that in many times. And we love her words of wisdom about don't take no for an answer. I just was so tickled to hear that story of calling up the CEO of Comcast, and he said, hey, give the lady what she needs and wants. And that's a great message. But it shows that it's wisdom, that you had the wisdom wisdom to, follow your dream and your heart and make them do what they said they were going to do. And so wisdom and experience is certainly something that businesses do rely on. And those businesses that do a good job of recognizing that talent and working with intergenerational work teams and mentoring are the kinds of companies that we want to acknowledge and recognize. So this event, we are seeking nominations. We still have time. If you know of a business, like to recommend a business, please go to our website, www.encorepbc.org, and nominate the business. A very simple form, takes just a couple moments. And it's important that we do recognize businesses that take the time to recognize the value of experience and wisdom. So that is what we are working toward. And having Iris here has been part of that. In October, we will be actually having a panel discussion of some employers, and they're going to tell some stories and share how experienced and mature employees have made a difference in their business. And that's going to be, Christine, what is that Wednesday we agreed upon in October?
That is the 20th. Yes, October 20th.
October 20th. So please look for that. And then we're also going to do a retrospective at that event, which will be looking back at all the words of wisdom we've had since we kicked off this series in March of this year. And we've certainly had some wonderful folks give us their wisdom, and we want to try to compile that and build upon it and have a retrospective. So I also want to invite everybody to the awards event on October 29th. And so please stay tuned. Oops, I'm at work right now, so I'm going to go on mute so you don't have to hear the phone.
Great.
Oops, somebody got it. But anyways, go to the website. You can check out everything that we have. Thank you.
Karen,
Yes, Iris.
I just wanted to let you know that I will have your masks next week. So wherever you need me to send those.
Well, thank you. I'll contact you. Iris has graciously donated some masks that will have the Encore Palm Beach County logo on them. And we're going to give those out at the event. So that's another enticement for people to come to the event. You get a wonderful mask with Encore Palm Beach County. And we thank you for that generosity, Iris. Appreciate it.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Iris. Rosemary, any closing thoughts?
If somebody else has some, I'd be happy to hear them first. Hearing none. Okay. Iris, I guess I can't stop thinking about your flight down the mountain. The words that you said are somebody pushed me and I went. And I think that oftentimes in life, there are people who give us a push. I couldn't help but think of the time I went hot air ballooning for the first time. I had been dating a fellow and he said, I have a surprise for you. And he took me up to the top of a mountain and said, they were blowing up the balloons. He said, so climb in. I said, what do you mean climb in? I don't like heights. I'm going to go up in this little flimsy thing. And he gave me a push and I landed in the basket. No, I couldn't get out. And off we went. And it was a wonderful experience. But, sometimes in life, we all need a little push. And I hope that other people will have that happen for them. And that there'll be somebody there to give you a push. I understand that actually the increase in entrepreneurs over 50 has been larger than younger people. People think young people are the entrepreneurs of the world, but actually many businesses are started with people in retirement or after 50. Have you any final thoughts for those contemplating going into an entrepreneurial situation later in life?
I will just say one of the stories that I've always looked at, and the person I looked at is Ray Kroc from McDonald's. So if you get an opportunity and you haven't seen that movie, you can see that. And he started late in life.
Yes,
So,
I have seen the movie and it is a great story. Also,
great, also great for him, but not for the brothers he bought it from.
well, and also Colonel Sanders, of course, is a very famous example of a late in life entrepreneur.
Yes.
So there's always a possibility.
The world is full of possibilities. Thank you all. Iris, thank you again. Thank you.
Thank
all
you,
for
everyone.
joining us. And I will be sending the recording so you can have that to share. And thank you, everyone. You can find it on our YouTube channel and visit our webpage, encorepbc.org, to find out more about Wisdom and Experience and all of the other events that we have coming up in the future. Thank you again and have a great day, everyone.
Have a great
Bye.
day. Thank you again. Bye-bye.